Hi again! Happy Pisces season. I'm actually currently filming this on the Pisces new moon, and I'm about to figure out if that is a huge mistake or the best thing that I've ever done. So today we will be talking about Pisces stereotypes, unpacking them, understanding where they come from, understanding the mind of a Pisces. And I've literally not spent this much time writing notes compared to any other sign video that I've done. Pisces is difficult. Pisces is abstract. I kind of struggled with it a little bit. I do have my Pisces and Venus, so I feel like I have a bit of a bias here, just putting that out there, but let's get into the stereotypes. Now, the first thing I noticed when writing down and figuring out all like the main stereotypes of Pisces is that they're really like not actually that harsh compared to other signs. Like other signs really get like the worst end of the stick or whatever. Pisces, like the worst thing that they have is like that they have a victim complex and that they're maybe emotionally manipulative, but really I feel like all water signs have the potential to be emotionally manipulative. So now, it makes a lot of sense that I struggled so much with pinning down Pisces traits and just writing about them because Pisces is the most abstract of the signs, and therefore it's probably the hardest to really describe accurately. So I apologize in advance if it doesn't feel like I really got it right to any Pisces out there. But really, they embody all. Because Pisces are actually a combination of all the previous 11 signs, and so they're really a mixed bag. They're a cauldron of all sorts of shit. And so it makes them very dimensional as a person. They are quite confusing. They're, as I mentioned, very abstract sort of people. And they also rule the 12th house, the house of the subconscious, and just anything that's kind of confusing and hard to understand at a surface level. That is what Pisces rules. So that's their whole fucking vibe, is they're kind of confusing and very in-depth, and they're hard to understand. What I love so much about Pisces is that they can simultaneously be two opposite things at the same time. So many Pisces, they're like childlike, yet at the same time are this wise figure that seems too old for the actual age they are, but then, yeah, at the same time, they're so like inner child vibes. So really, they are just opposites coexisting, which is kind of bizarre to like understand. Oh, we're already struggling with this video. Good luck to me future editing this. The very first stereotype that we're going to get into is that Pisces are dreamy, otherworldly, they're kind of delusional in their own world. Let me tell you why. So Pisces is ruled by Neptune and Jupiter, depending if you're looking at modern or traditional astrology. I will be looking at both. And Neptune is all about dreams, illusions, spirituality, stuff that is a little bit complicated and abstract. And then Jupiter is all about kind of expansion. And so things become very enlarged within Pisces personalities and within how they experience because of this connection to Jupiter. They can also be a very lucky sign. So it totally makes sense that Pisces come across in a very kind of dreamy sort of facade because they are ruled by the planet that is to do with dreams and illusions and stuff. And Pisces often have a sort of spiritual essence to them, whether they are spiritually practicing anything or if they're religious anyway. It's a very common trait for Pisces to just have a certain special something that you can't pin down, but they feel like inherently spiritual. And another thing with how Jupiter kind of affects Pisces is their love. Pisces are essentially in love with the world and in love with love itself, and they can be prone to romanticizing everything, and they can see how everything is interconnected, whether that's something that they can really describe or not. They can just really feel it because they're a water sign. They're a very feeling kind of sign. And so I feel like Jupiter has this influence over Pisces where they can really embody everything, get lost in things, see everything, kind of similar to how a Sagittarian is aware of all things very like from a eagle view. However, Pisces can objectively see everything, but it sees more so the details. Pisces sees the beauty within the mundane details of the world that may seem insignificant to most, but to a Pisces, they really understand it in a broader way, I guess. Now, another stereotype that kind of goes along with this previous stereotype, and you're going to kind of see that that's a theme throughout all these stereotypes as they all kind of interconnect to each other, is that Pisces are hopeless romantics. They're the artist, like archetype kind of thing. As I mentioned, Pisces can be very prone to romanticizing life and idealizing things. And they can also idealize people or create a fantasy of people that they're dating or people that they have a crush on. And so half the time when Pisces fall for someone or have a crush on someone, they are actually projecting their ideal versions of that person, their fantasy version of that person, and not actually seeing the person for who they are really at all. And that's where they kind of fall into the delusional side that Neptune kind of is part of. And so often, because they're not seeing people for who they really are, they are ignoring or disregarding red flags. Pisces are also one to give lots of excuses for someone because they're extremely empathetic. Pisces, as I kind of mentioned before, are in love with love or in love with the idea of love. And so they will often fall for someone that's completely really made up and isn't the actual person. But to them, in their world, that is what that person is. And so they can kind of have this hopeless romantic kind of vibe where they fall in love all the time, but it never really goes anywhere, or they fall into bad situations or toxic relationships. And that's partially why. And also, Pisces, they kind of have no boundaries when it comes to being in partnership or when it comes to just love. I've heard Pisces described as like they're an open conduit where love is a never-ending supply that they have to give and share. And so they're willing to give it all to their partners or their loved ones. They're willing to give it all, which is obviously not completely healthy in certain situations. Yeah, Pisces often, although they may often appear to be in love with people really easily and fall for people easily, that's really not quite the case. You just have to look under it a little bit more to truly understand what's going on. And once this facade is kind of removed a little bit by them either like being in an actual relationship with that person and getting to know them, they can start kind of having icks of that person just doing normal human things, like, I don't know, like farting or something, or just like little tics that that person has or little like habits that they have that can be like really off-putting and unappealing to a Pisces and be like, I'm not in love with this person anymore, because that doesn't fit their ideal standard and their ideal fantasy that they've created in their head of the person. And so then they realize, oh, I'm not actually into this person because it doesn't fit that. So it's like they weren't really in love with that person to begin with. Now, the next stereotype that we're going to get into that we've already kind of mentioned is that Pisces are very empathetic. Really, all water signs have this kind of empathy and sensitivity to other people, but Pisces especially, they're extremely good at putting themselves into someone else's shoes, kind of similar to a Sagittarian. And there's a lot of similarities just because they are both ruled by Jupiter. And they often give people the benefit of the doubt, even if they maybe shouldn't. They give people way too many chances. And this is because they just have such a deep understanding of life situations, of what someone might have been through, how all these things that have happened in their life have led them up to making these certain mistakes and behaving this way. They're really empathetic in that way. And Pisces also inherently believe that most people are good, or all people like have the potential to be good people, which can be kind of seen as a little bit naive at times, but it's actually a very beautiful quality to have. But they do need to understand their own boundaries and stuff before it becomes a problem. Pisces are very good healers. They're good at understanding their own wounds and even better at understanding other people's wounds, and often have a sense of what that person's gone through, even without even the person telling them like their childhood traumas and stuff. They just kind of inherently know through hanging out with that person and seeing their behaviors and stuff. They're like very, very intuitive signs that can tell what's wrong and like the wounds that exist within a person. But within that, they kind of put that person in again, an idealized state where they could do no wrong because they're a victim of life and they have been through so much. So they're not going to judge that person for doing wrong actions and stuff. They're always going to forgive. Pisces is a very almost overly forgiving sign, and that can often be taken advantage of. Now, while Pisces can be very empathetic for other people, they're also very empathetic of themselves, which can sometimes make them fall into a bit of a victim complex. That's another stereotype, is that Pisces love to complain, pity themselves, feel sorry from themselves, and are just like kind of moody and almost seem to like to be depressed and sad and melancholy. They kind of romanticize that. Many Pisces are pretty used to actually being the victim in situations because they have traits that are often taken advantage of, and because they're such an emotionally open person, is that they can get themselves into situations where they are taken advantage of and they are the victim. That's valid. However, when they assume that that's always the case, they're going to find reasons within a relationship, even if they're in the wrong, of how really they're also a victim in this. And that will make it harder for them to see how they've harmed the other person and that person is also a victim in a situation. So yeah, most people with victim complexes aren't usually aware that they have a victim complex, but yeah, it does come from a place that makes sense. Being a victim is, in a way, how Pisces sees a lot of their worth. Like, Pisces really feel for people that have been through a lot, and they're really kind of drawn to those people because they want to help and heal them and spread the love. And so if they don't see themselves that they are also victims in many ways, then they're going to kind of feel like they've gotten away with something, and then they have less of an identity, or it feels like they have less of an identity because it's not attached to anything tragic. Pisces love the sort of archetype of like the bad boy who has a really dark past kind of thing. They really resonate with that, or can just really empathize with that, because they really do see how like life can affect people and make them do the things that they do. They are very psychological sort of sign. Now, another stereotype that kind of goes along with the victim complex thing is that they can be emotionally manipulative. They're kind of into delusion that they are always the one who's the victim, as we mentioned, and it's always someone else's fault, or it's always the universe's fault, or bad things just happen to them, and they have nothing to do with all these things that are happening, where that's not always the case. Now, because Pisces are so good, or not even necessarily good, but are so open to expressing their emotions and how they feel, whether those are coherent or not, because they're so comfortable with that, then they can kind of take advantage, without even realizing, other people who are less comfortable or not comfortable at all with expressing their emotions, by kind of making that person feel bad that they can't express the emotions the same way as them. So, like, for example, a Pisces may start crying over something that they're feeling about, and that could be a very like valid and real reaction to have, but then that will make the other person feel bad, or feel like they can't bring up their problems or their issues with that person because the Pisces looks like they're in a vulnerable place. So I feel like that's kind of like a Pisces stereotype of like Pisces bursting into tears if someone ever tries to like say that something that they've done is wrong. And I'm not just saying that Pisces or people with Pisces placements are the only ones that do that sort of thing, but I'd say it's kind of like a common trait that you could see in Pisces. There's like kind of a bit of a trend that like Pisces men are horrible and they're always like the emotionally manipulative ones, because out of all men, like they're perhaps the more open about talking about their emotions, but then they can kind of twist the person's perception on the situation by kind of gaslighting the other person, or, you know, we're not going to get into it too much, but I thought I would mention that. Now, the last stereotype that will kind of wrap things all up is that Pisces are very sensitive and emotional, if you couldn't tell already. I've heard Pisces once described as the ocean, compared to like the other water signs where it's something like Cancer is like a pond, Scorpio is like a river. I can't remember, but the Pisces is the ocean. Pisces is a huge, massive body of water, and it goes so deep, and there's so much unknown that goes down there that no one could ever truly understand the depth of it. And so for Pisces, emotions and feelings and experiencing the world, it almost is an entirely different experience. And like emotions are an entirely different world for Pisces, for people that feel very deeply compared to other signs. They are very aware of the subconscious within other people. As I was mentioning, they're aware of emotions and energies going on. They're the type of person where if they're at a party and they're in another room and then they enter a new room and something tense had just happened, they're going to be able to sense that something's off. They're very good at kind of guessing dynamics between people that they've never even met or know that well. It's just something that they're in their nature, they're innately good at. Yeah, Pisces have a whole entire range of emotions that don't even seem to have names for them. Like, they can feel such a mixture of emotions that they don't even know how to describe how they're feeling or why they're feeling. That's another big thing about Pisces, is that they have an easier time understanding other people's subconscious fears and wounds and like the shadow side, but it's harder for them to objectively understand their own, just because it's coming from a subjective place. Now, there's one stereotype I did forget to mention, and that it's the whole like Pisces are into drugs and they're prone to addiction, which can be true. Pisces like can be often drawn to drugs and just being intoxicated and stuff, because that world of intoxication is something they actually resonate and relate better to and feel more at home to than when they're in a sober state in like the normal world, because they're such a kind of otherworldly type of energy. They love to experience being in that alternate dimension or that alternate way of existing, which can be induced by drugs and stuff. And then addiction, Pisces can be very prone to escapism in various forms, so that could be through the form of drugs or through like movies and books and like fantasy novels and stuff. They could be very good at creating very rich, real fantasy worlds and stuff. Really weird kind of stuff. Like Pisces vibes gives me like Midnight Gospel. Like that's very Pisces to me, because it's just like everything, and it's so bizarre but charming somehow. But because of the house it rules and the planet ruler, which is all to do with illusion and the subconscious and the unknown, Pisces feel a lot more at home when they are escaping reality. They don't really vibe well with reality and are maybe more sensitive to reality than other people, just because they're so empathetic and they feel so deeply. So escaping to other dimensions, whether that's through drugs or like being obsessed with like a certain TV show, they can become addicted to those sorts of things because they're so addicted to escapism. And, you know, because Pisces can have a hard time understanding what is real and what is not, that can be not so pretty if they're delving into very, like, psychological things that are going to psychologically damage or affect them in some way. That can have some pretty scary effects. And another little stereotype about Pisces is that Pisces can be very gullible to like conspiracy theories or getting themselves into cults. This is not necessarily all Pisces, but this is just like on the extreme end of things. There's many cult leaders that are actually Pisces themselves. But I feel like it's like it's like a thing that Pisces might more likely involve themselves or get caught in a cult because of the whole delusion thing, where it's easier for them to, or it's harder for them to tell what is real versus what isn't. Anyways, I think that was partially a mistake to do this on the Pisces moon because my mind is all over the place and I can't even fucking describe shit. So I hope to God that that was coherent in some way. I honestly feel the least confident about this video unpacking the stereotypes. I feel like there is so much that I didn't get to or didn't even like realize to put on the list. So it's not perfect, but I hope that you learned some things about Pisces, understand kind of why they are the way they are. If you hate Pisces, I hope that this has made you hate them less, and helped you understand Pisces traits. But yeah, I'll see you in my last one, which will be Aries. I don't know why I did it in that order. It just kind of happened that way. But we got one more video of this series left. So, Yahoo! Happy Pisces season, and happy birthday to all the Pisces out there. Okay, bye! Be nice to me in the comments if you want to correct or add on anything. I am fragile. So, but yeah, please, like, feel free to comment what you want to say on the subject or if I missed anything. But yeah, just be gentle to me because I'm really feeling the Pisces vibes this season. So, I could cry. Okay, bye!